Alrighty, so I'm here with Seth with Sarah Group and been working with Seth for a while now. He was kind enough to jump on here and give me a little bit of information about his experience with Bullfinch so far. So, Seth, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and Sarah Group and what y'all do?
Yeah, so I'm Seth, and I'm the owner of Sarah Group. We're a marketing agency based out of Indiana, and we've been around now for 7 years. We focus on website design, marketing accounts, as well as graphic and branding.
And how did you first get started with Bullfinch? What did you start using this on?
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story. So the way that I actually met Kyle was him reaching out. Yeah, it was over an email. And, if you're an agency owner, you'll know how many emails you get from people asking, to help you with X, Y, or Z. And something actually stood out about Bullfinch to me. It looked much more put together, professional, I don't know, just real. And we almost always work with local people. And I kind of figured that they weren't local. So it was actually the only email out of the 7 years I've been in business that I have ever responded to and actually expressed an interest in someone offering us a service. And so at that time, I had booked a call with Kyle, and I was immediately impressed. Felt like I was talking to, a buddy in the room about, agency life, business, how they could help us. So we had a really, really busy period earlier this year to where we really pushed our team to the max, and our timelines were getting pushed a bit too far out. So that's right when we were looking at bringing someone in to be able to help with that, and happened to be perfect timing. And that's kind of how our relationship started.
Perfect. So, and how did that go? Did bringing us on board help you to bring those timelines back under control and get you where you need to be?
Yeah. So I'll be real with, again, agency owners out there or business owners. Almost everybody knows there's always going to be a learning curve or hiccups when you first start a relationship. And we've worked with a lot of contractors before, so I expected, this, few month process of constant, critique and, running into issues, maybe it not working out. But to my surprise, I mean, we're really talking extremely quick. We were able to work together, get on the same page in terms of building of websites, and really became like a component of our team. Was communicating with different team members, and we were able to actually reduce our timelines from what we normally do in a time that we were 2, 3 times as busy. So it actually turned out better than what I had expected in a much shorter time frame.
Beautiful. Um, Let me ask. I know that Sarah Group really traditionally has leaned on in-house staff, and you guys have gotten excellent at that model. Working with Bullfinch is sort of a deviation from that, and it bolts on another provider from the outside. Can I ask, like, what made you choose to deviate from in-house staff and make that quick call?
Yeah, good question. So training people takes quite some time, and we didn't have time. And I mean, just being honest, employees are also really expensive. And at that point, it was really a matter of, we had this influx of business. We needed an answer in a matter of weeks for someone to help us build sites of good quality, and not months or 6 months and such. So, that was definitely part of the decision there. I mean, just completely honest, very low risk, in our opinion, comparative to hiring a long-term employee. So that was a driving factor, but it worked out extremely well.
And was anything about it unexpected? Were there any aspects of that model that surprised you, hopefully in a positive way?
Yes. So we, despite being a service provider, we really don't work with that many service providers. And as you mentioned, we almost always have in-house team for every job role. So this was just different in a way of us, having a subscription to something and not being in-house, just across the board. I expected to not be like impressed, I guess to say. I expected to know like status quo, here's exactly what we're getting for exactly what we're paying. And it ended up actually impressing me. And like not having a big head here, that's pretty hard to do with me. I have like really high standards for quality. So I expected to get the minimum amount of work promised at just the bare threshold of yes, it's acceptable. And we ended up getting more than what we had expected and of better quality with less revisions than what we had expected. So probably for one of the first times when working with someone, we were ahead of estimates across the board, and that allowed us to be more profitable. So even though we were incurring like an expense, it was actually helping us scale and grow. So yeah, definitely like overachieved in that way, like a good surprise there.
Beautiful. Happy to hear that. So something that we really emphasize is communication, and particularly removing communication that's not productive and really just leaning into the communication that's driving the ball forward. I'm curious if that kind of came across in your guys' dealings with us, or what your perception internally was of our communication style and how we use project management tools, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we're a really project like management driven agency here. We've one of our first hires was actually a project manager, and that ended up being our like lead on our side to work with Bullfinch, and it worked incredibly well. They're incredibly responsive. We actually had not used kind of like a Kanban Trello type view before, so it was new to us, and it worked extremely smoothly. So even though it was something new to us, it worked out really well. And the responsiveness of it was very good. One thing I also really appreciated, and I know that our team does, is we value being able to talk to someone, which is why the in-house is so important. Kyle and his team have never, been the slightest hesitant to like, hey, let's hop on a call, and figure it out or something. But honestly, that wasn't really necessary, like 99% of the time, because the work was just good to begin with. But I did really appreciate how there wasn't like crazy chain emails back and forth needing stuff from us and questions. Like, they're problem solvers. They would have a solution and then come back with that. That was always incredibly helpful for our team.
Perfect. I guess last question then would be, are there any kind of standout examples on projects that you worked with us on, or anything else? I mean, you sort of touched on being able to drive down timelines, but I wonder if anything else sticks out in terms of being a specific example of Bullfinch being having an impact on your business.
Super easy to answer that question, because there was a time, for lack of a better word, they totally saved my ass in particular. And you probably already know what I'm talking about here. So as an agency, we were working with a larger client than perhaps we normally would. And because of that, we offered 4 out of the 5 solutions in-house. One of the solutions that we didn't offer in-house for this client was kind of like a broad spectrum SEO audit and implementation steps there. So at that time, we were only working with Bullfinch for websites only and not focusing on the SEO components. So we had actually hired a contractor off of, like a big contractor website, decent cost of money to do this audit. The guy, despite having a really high hourly rate, good reviews, totally dropped the ball. It was totally outsourced, and it was really bad. And it caught us like 2 days prior to this big meeting with these executives. So I reached out to Kyle in like pure desperation of like, hey, Kyle, I know you mentioned that you do SEO. Could you help with this? Pretty sure it was the same evening I got an SEO audit overview, and it was like it understood the business principles, the competitors, like all of these things without me having to say so. And we actually ended up using that with the client, and the meeting totally went good. And so that was like totally out of our normal ballpark scope. We did end up getting the project, and we are still working with that client. So I guess that is a different example of how it allowed us to actually service a client that we normally wouldn't have serviced, and extended our services, which normally we would never do just for quality control reasons. But that is totally something I feel comfortable with Bullfinch. So yeah, thanks for still saving me there.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today, Seth. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. You got to get back to work here. So I will stop taking your time, but thank you. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you.